There we go, it's 7 PM. Okay, so I have a quorum, I can call the meeting to order. Tonight's agenda is, as posted, we have dealing with reserve fund transfers, meeting minutes, old business, new business, public access, and adjournment. So the first thing to deal in, why most people are here, the reserve fund transfers, and number one on that list is the underground diesel tank at the DPW. And Heather's here to talk to that, and
Yeah,
hey, sir.
and Barbara and Robin are both very familiar with the whole situation also. So unfortunately, our diesel tank at the DPW finally, I won't say finally, failed. It had been giving us problems back and forth, and we were hoping it was okay. We passed our pressure tests last year, and unfortunately during, after we actually just had passed another round of pressure tests, about a week later, we got a high water alarm, or high level alarm in our interstitial space, which is the space between the two tanks. And when we went out and sampled that area, it was diesel, which means that the diesel tank, that's the inside tank, had failed into the outside tank and was in the containment area. So obviously we had to take that tank out of service. So we did that process, started our reporting to DEP, had to get the material out of the old tank. So we had to rent a tank, and that's what we have there now. We have a rented tank that we're able to pump out of. We had to have a pump put in it, connect it to our diesel dispensing system, and we're able to disperse out of that tank on a temporary basis. So that's the 8,000 gallon above ground tank that we have there now. So we're able to still provide fuel. But what we're looking for from you guys at this point is to cover that cost through the end of the fiscal year, to cover the cost for that initial setup. So there was obviously a delivery fee, we have rental fees every month for that tank, cover the cost for the connection, which was like $10,000 to connect from into the dispersing system. We had to buy a pump, do plumbing, have it connected in, and then an additional, we have to do some additional actions with our environmental consultant to report back to the DEP of what's going on and what we're going to have to do in the future. So we already had sampling wells there, which is kind of good because we're already able to collect some samples and do that. But we will have to go through the whole reporting procedure. So we have an estimate from the consultant already. So we included that in this cost. So that is what we're looking for, to be able to cover our cost till the end of the year related to that diesel tank failure. And then we'll incorporate something going forward to do it. At this point, it's a little premature for us to know what the final solution is. We're looking into different solutions, but we don't know what the final cost, what we're gonna have to do for covering for any cleanup cost, removal of that tank, which will probably be there. Installation of a new tank, which would probably be an above ground tank, but even to the size of what that tank is going to be, it likely won't be another 10,000 gallon tank. It will probably be something smaller after we do look at some of the sizing and what our usage is. Our good news is our usage for diesel has gone down, mostly because the ambulances moved away from diesel, the buses are moving away from diesel. The DPW big trucks are going to remain diesel for the foreseeable next 10 years. I can't see that technology catching up, not for the big trucks. You know, we don't buy smaller diesel trucks anymore, mostly because the maintenance on them is very, very intense, and it takes a lot more than it used to because there's so much emission controls on them. So they are prone to give you problems, especially if they're not operating on highways, on highway miles. They like to be on the highway going for, 3,000 miles a week, not 30. So that's what we're looking for. We didn't have any cost to cover that. We thought we were in the clear last year when we passed our test and did the repairs that we did, but it was, I don't have an exact date of when it was installed. I know it was in the late 1990s, so it had lasted over 20 years, which is probably about the life of the tank. And we probably need to consider, probably even when we're doing the diesel tank, what we want to do with the gas tank at the same time.
This is the same we were talking about a year, 18 months
Yeah,
ago?
before I
Right.
was here.
Yeah.
It had come up before I was here. I know that my predecessor Butch had put into, that there were some concerns about the tank.
Mhm.
What they thought they needed, we actually did last year. We did some additional sealing on where the pipes come up out of it, where you take all your samples and where all the, they did some improvements there. And they thought that addressed the problem because we were having water get down into that interstitial space, which is when the alarm went off. We said, oh, the water's in the, we've had high groundwater, the water's in the interstitial space again. It's not a big deal, we'll pump it out, it'll be fine. Go to pump it out and, no, it's diesel.
Wow.
It's clearly colored diesel, and we're like, oh, this is not good. This is what we didn't want to happen.
Yeah.
It, you know,
I was just, at that point in time, we were talking $600,000
Oh.
for you to replace all of that. You know, is that still roughly a realistic figure, or is it gonna be more than that?
I would say that's probably roughly a realistic figure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that, like I said, I currently have some correspondence going back and forth between some tank vendors to try to get them to give, like, right-size the tanks as opposed to the 10,000 gallons.
Mhm.
We know the 10,000 gallons is too much. So the good news is we want to right-size the tank. The bad news is, as soon as you start talking about tanks and new dispensing systems and, you know, if we're going to do this, we're gonna do this probably everything, you know, because there's not a really good way to set up tanks and use our same dispensing system, you know, our same pumps. So we have to relay it out, we have to re-engineer it, and then it's also, what do you do with the tanks that are in the ground? And what's the cost associated with removing those and remediating any of the soils there?
Yeah.
Now, usually the end of the year, you're talking about
Fiscal year.
June, end
Yes,
of June.
Yes.
So it's gonna take us October, November, December, like 6, 8 months to before we can figure it
Well,
out, or?
Before, so we don't have any funds to start any of the engineering
Yeah.
or any of that. So if we get to a point where and then even if we did, I can guarantee you we wouldn't be able to even get the parts and the pieces installed before the end of June. So we need to take it in a step-by-step, really evaluate all our options. So right now we're getting information for, you know, no cost, because I'm
Yeah.
talking to vendors, I'm not talking to engineers, I'm kind of talking to vendors of, hey, what kind of products do you have? And I have this much usage, what would you recommend? So those are all freebies, you know, it's just my time, it's not hiring an engineer, but when we go to do this, we're gonna need full engineering plans, biddable plans, and everything else. So we're talking a good year project before we're even
You're saying a
done.
lot of vehicles are going away from this, right?
So, away from diesel, we
Yeah.
still will need it, because our fire trucks use it, we still have buses that use it, and we still have DPW vehicles that use it. And we're gonna look into every option, we'll look at even not putting a tank in, or putting a very small tank in, and possibly having a vendor, but there's other problems associated with that, because we are emergency services, what is the time frames and things of that nature.
Because EVs will probably way off as far as electric.
As far as the big vehicles, they're way off. And even if they are, they replace 2 buses a year on average, 2 to
Yeah.
3. It's a very big fleet, so they are replacing their diesel buses. So but it's still, they're 4 or 5 years out before they get those replaced. And they, you know, so that's just going to gas.
So you're gonna be in transition, okay?
Yeah, I don't think they're doing EVs yet, right, for
Or anything
busing.
else for that matter.
Right, so, and, you know,
Robin, you have a point?
Yeah, I just was gonna jump in on this and say, I think we're gonna just try to use this sort of unfortunate, unexpected situation to now take a big look at our whole fuel service.
Right.
And as Heather said, look at a vendor, can we do it for diesel, can we do it for gas? So, I mean, instead of rushing into anything dramatic at this point, we have to do this interim measure, but it really does give us a good opportunity to take a big picture look as things are changing and moving away from diesel.
Yeah.
How about contracting out? Isn't there any places we can buy diesel from, a diesel station like we buy our?
Yeah,
that's what we're
That's-
talking about,
that's-
using an on-site vendor. Meaning like
Yeah,
going to
exactly.
Pilot or going to one of those.
So we
yes.
then we won't need a tank or anything, right? We go to do that and during transition.
So what we also have that for is emergency situations, though. So I know of situations in the past, even when the tornado happened, when we had the big ice storm a couple of years ago, all of those stations didn't have any fuel, and they didn't get any fuel. So we have to be able to provide ourselves fuel at least for a week.
Okay,
Because if we
Right.
didn't have that
We
ability, but it might not be as big of a tank.
Yeah.
Exactly. Might be a smaller tank. We may also look at gasoline better.
that's fair.
But do we supply, like, I know the senior center as a thing is, emergency shelter, like it's got a generator there, isn't that diesel?
It will have a generator, it doesn't
Oh.
right now, but it
Okay.
will. And I think it's gonna be a diesel generator.
Yeah, so that type of stuff. we
It
need
is
to have
that
it for.
time of stuff we need to have the diesel for. That, a
Right.
lot of the pump stations for the wastewater treatment plant, they have backup generators because we have multiple pump station, and most of those are diesel. So we have to be able to,
Right, yeah.
you know, in cases of, refill those tanks, because they don't stay full, and there's not a filling person that's gonna come out in a major ice storm, like, you know, that was, I remember this storm, it was a couple of years ago on Halloween, I believe, so, let's hope that doesn't happen again. So, but yeah, so there was no fuel for 30 miles. You had to go to Auburn. I think it was the first fuel station that had power to pump, because you have to have power, and there was nobody that had power, and there were stations that if they did have power, they ran out of gas within the first like couple days. So we can't be in that situation. We have to be somewhat self-sufficient. Maybe not onto the scale that we are right now,
Well, that's a good point, yeah.
but there will, and obviously scale matters, you know, as far as cost.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the transfer of $43,124 from the reserve fund into the DPW purchase of services in order to get us through the end of the year so we can figure out what our permanent plan is gonna be? Larry, a second? Lee? Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's 8-0.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you for your time and coming in. Thank you.
Boy, I don't know if you want to open windows, but it is.
I know,
windy.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
It'll prompt us to move faster.
look at sauna.
All right, so that's one down. The second one on our list is Charter Open Space Master Plan mailing, but I have no paperwork related to that, so I assume that that has actually gone up on the wayside.
Yes, it has. We're all set.
Okay.
We're good.
Is that coming from opera money?
No, we actually have funding.
Election costs for polling change in location. You have paperwork, you have a couple explanations there. Obviously, it's moving it out of that room there and moving it to the Sturbridge Host Hotel, so it's a little more convenient for everyone to get everything done. It was a little tight here, parking was difficult. This just makes it a little more efficient.
So the reason that wasn't, I don't think Lynn is there. Is Lynn there?
No.
The
No,
reason that wasn't budgeted was because originally Lynn had talked to them and it was an astronomical price. And she just couldn't justify the cost. And so we left it sort of as is, figuring we could make it work. She got back in touch with them, worked it through. There's some cost, but significantly lower than what they were originally talking about. Otherwise, we would have budgeted for that. But she did a great job negotiating. It's like, I don't know, maybe a third of the price on it between the food and everything else, a third to a half the price of what they'd originally talked about. So logistically, it works so much better, parking's so much easier, and, but we just didn't have it in the budget because we had not planned, she had not thought that we'd be able to do that at a reasonable price.
What about Burgess School?
No, it's from,
It's our facility,
no,
it's
it's
like,
it's a
They
school
have
committee's
facility.
facility.
well, the town, right, I guess, somewhere.
It's a separate.
Well, it's
They can't, the Burgess School can't be used, rather than give the money to,
The school would have to agree to it as well, the school committee. That's a joint. that's
The
a-
reason the school committee will not do it is the public is coming in and they've got 950 little kids. And what if somebody says, oh, where's the restroom? And then and then.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's why.
Liabilities.
Exposure.
Our election days aren't, there's one thing with presidential elections where it's a hot, when schools close, but, an April election, certainly not necessarily gonna be a day out of school.
I was gonna say, just getting on Route 20 from the host at any time, especially coming out of Yankee Spirits or something, is horrendous. So I don't think the ease of getting out is an answer to that. But anyway, that's just neither here nor there, I guess.
We may, if there's an issue, we could have traffic detail and we could have police detail at the high traffic hours.
Okay.
That would be
The
the
rush
same
hour.
with
I'll talk
purchase
to the
anyway.
police
Yeah.
chief.
And the only thing I was thinking about, if we knew a church or something where they had a hall or something where we could give money to a church or any other organization that might benefit from it, I wouldn't mind that either. I
Some
mean,
people don't like going into a church.
a hall, not a church where you're
Yeah,
gonna,
but
like,
they looked at it
Yeah.
and they said it
Okay.
was ADA compliant in town.
Yeah,
okay, fine.
and that's the one thing about the host, it's ADA.
So if I could just interject.
Sure.
So Lynn had, prior to us moving the elections from OSV to the town hall, Lynn had investigated many different options. And the polling location also needs to be approved at the state level and has to meet certain requirements. And so she did look into church halls and other situations like you're speaking about.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, none of those came to fruition, and that was why we ended up moving it into the town hall. But she did a lot of legwork when we knew that we needed to leave the OSB, in an attempt to find a different location other than moving it to the town hall. So she definitely did her due diligence. I just want you all to know that.
Oh, yeah, no, I
That's good.
remember the discussions. All right, so then can I have a motion to move $1,575 from the reserve fund to the election purchase of services account? Larry and Ken. All right, as I keep trying to take notes. Any further questions or comments? Anybody? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's 8-0. All right, and the last one on the list is the insurance blanket. And there it is right there, $41,000. All right, so you want to explain, Barbara, what's going on there? Because I thought we were getting a big discount.
So this is kind of a lot of different things that came to this situation. One is the renewal premium, and it's not just one insurance, but various insurances was higher than anticipated when the budget was submitted. And then in the past, we've gotten premium adjustments and endorsements, and then participation credits that unfortunately, we've relied on those every single year. So when we're budgeting, we are budgeting a number based on receiving those credits and endorsements. And this year, those were much lower than past years. I know that Robin is working with departments now to, there's different things that we can do, participating in different trainings that take small percentages. It's not a lot of money, but every little bit helps. So she's working on that right now to get departments to participate more to get those participation credits. But ultimately, I think it was just a matter of a lot of different situations that kind of all hit us at once. We are going to take a look at that for next year because, again, we've been very lucky over the years that those credits have offset a big part of the cost. And like I said, that did not happen this year.
I will also tell you, Michelle found a few vehicles that had not been insured. I think we had 3 that she found that were not on the policy, which was a huge concern.
Yeah.
You get participation credits, as Barbara mentioned, and an interesting discussion, I know, I see Kathy there. An interesting comment was made today, we were at the small town administrators meeting, And somebody made a comment today about the fact that Maya kind of has a corner on the market, and, there's sort of no restriction on how much they raise their premium prices as well. That, we did great on healthcare when I threatened to go out to bid, and they dropped our rates 8 or 9%. But, we may need to look at our insurance costs and look at our options.
Barbara, what is the amount of the insurance that we're adding this $41,000 to? What is the base number?
Yeah, give me 1 second, okay?
Thank you.
Let's see here.
If you can look it up, I should have looked it up.
Insurance blanket is $416,000.
$116,000.
Yep, 416,000, you're correct.
So it's about 10% over.
And okay. It's not untypical to see it increases out in the market right now, especially in liability and auto, in the 14 to 16% range is pretty typical.
How about deductions and self-insurance? Do you ever look at self-insurance, some of the liability? So we got so much free cash? I mean, on my own policy, I'd say, yeah, let's go up to $5,000, it's like, whatever. And it's, we'll drop it down then. Can we do anything like, because this is gonna go up and up. It's just like what was mentioned, Mike was mentioning it, that's just the world today, right?
I will tell you that a lot of places may look at self-insurance for healthcare and unemployment insurance. I've not run into it typically for building insurance, and this is really where our costs are right now. In vehicle insurance, I've not experienced self-insurance. We can look into it, but I think the risk is very high when you're talking about buildings and whatnot because the cost is so astronomical. Healthcare, you set up a health insurance trust, and part of the employee copay and the town copay goes into it. That's a little bit different, and frankly, with the way they've dropped our rates, we're doing pretty well right now. You also have to have a large enough pool to make self-insurance work. So you have to be a little bit careful on that. We've looked at with health insurance consolidation groups and things like that as well. But when you're talking about building insurance, you have to be really careful, and typically you're better off going through a company. But again, I'm not opposed to, looking at our options on bidding. And sometimes when you bid, like I said, they came back with much better rates on health. Just the nature of the industry is health insurance, blanket insurance is increasing.
Deductibles is something you can look at, but self-insurance is a dangerous
Yeah.
road to go down.
Or partially self-insured, but deductibles is something that we might wanna look at, maybe, I don't know. Or I guess we combine a lot of our insurances under one company and then get discounts if we can do that, I guess, I don't know. Sometimes you
Yes, so we
get,
do already do that, automobile, general liability, building, that's all under, that's under Maya, so we have that complete coverage. And then we have a couple of other policies, like for police and fire, injured on duty insurance, IOD, that's a different policy. But for the most part, the bulk of what we pay under this budget is to Maya directly. The other thing that's in this budget is all the individuals that need to have actual bonds. I mean, that's not a lot of money, but that's also funded here also. And then like workman's comp, for instance, so there'll be different adjustments throughout the year for some of the insurance. So for instance, we're in the process of having our workman's comp audit done right now for last year. And so depending on what they charged us for that insurance, and when they look at actually what we paid our employees, we can see actually an increase, or that we owed some money for last year as part of that audit. And then some years we also get money back. So I accounted for what I think is the worst case situation, and hopefully this will get us through the balance of the year.
So Barbara, just one quick question here too. I mean, you're showing that the balance is, you're short 16,000, but you're asking for 41. Is that because you're looking for $25,000 as a just in case to,
So it's not a just in case. What I did is I looked at what we had paid for insurance costs, basically from now till the end of the fiscal year, and then took that number, and that's the 41,000. So yeah, so even though you see a deficit, so overall, if you remember, now we don't budget by the specific line item, but we budget by the total. So that unclassified budget is the 5.1 million, so even though I'm showing a deficit, I technically don't in the overall unclassified. But I think that after looking at the entire budget structure for unclassified, I think we're gonna be pretty close, so I don't really see a lot of leeway in any of those other numbers right now.
Okay.
I was gonna say, is this an annual, do we get quoted on an annual basis, or they change every 6 months?
The premiums?
Yeah,
Yes, so it's an annual, an annual basis, and then in the past, years, there's been some years where we've had like a 2-year lock-on pricing. So we have been able to do different things over the years, to try to get these costs to stay pretty low. Like I said, unfortunately, this year, that didn't come into play.
Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned the not as much participation, not as many dividends, or what you're saying there, that the number of employees signing up for insurance is less than what was anticipated in home?
No, this isn't signing up for like health insurance. This is all of our building insurances and safety risk insurances. So Maya offers rewards for employees who undergo safety training, for example, IT security, cybersecurity, all those things. And so we've had better participation and we anticipate that return. So Michelle, in fact, today sent an email out to the department with a bunch of trainings available. We need to really start hustling employees and reminding them the importance of doing that.
is that mandatory, or is it voluntary training?
Well, it's typically voluntary, but we can certainly ask directors to have their people engage in trainings where necessary. On the other hand, if people have already been through trainings, or classes where we can get that, you're taking their time to redo something they've already done, and, that time has a monetary value too.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of take a big picture look at it, but we definitely could do better.
Pizza and donuts work well, I tell ya.
Food does one, right now it's virtual.
I'll attend, yeah, I'll attend.
Some of them are virtual, some aren't, but yeah, we are, bring food, but we are pushing. Michelle sent an email out today, and I'm gonna reemphasize at our staff meetings the importance of this. It's just money lost.
Mike, did you have any follow-up?
Yeah, I would just say that it's not uncommon for employers to require your employees to take a safety training. You do it on an annual basis, and maybe a day or 2 days, and people may gripe about having to do it year after year, but if it helps drive some of these costs and also helps drive, safety practices, reinforce them, it's, something that we should be able to do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And I know that, okay.
For police, things like that we do send, but we need to just be on everybody about it.
All
So
right.
I wanted to add too, though, just to give you like a example of something. So, the email that went out today that Robin's referring to had to do with simulator training for police, fire, and DPW. And Chief Desert responded to that saying that he's been trying to get that, but that one is a very high demand class. So, that happens too sometimes, is depending on what the training is, you're not able to actually get it during the fiscal year. I will say also that in past years, I know there was chainsaw training that actually Sturbridge actually hosted, and a bunch of towns, a bunch of DPW employees came from other towns for that training. So we do try to take advantage of that stuff, and Robin's commented more, but I just wanted you to understand that sometimes the trainings are very popular and we don't have an opportunity to get into those classes.
All right. Anybody else? So can I have a motion then to approve the transfer of $41,000 from the reserve fund to the insurance blanket account? Larry and Lee. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
What does that leave in the reserve fund after all this?
I
Did
didn't
you
do
figure that one out?
that. I did not figure that out. I can do that afterwards, but I didn't do it.
Yeah, probably should have mentioned what the starting value was.
Well, the starting is what was,
184,000.
yeah,
It was what?
184.
Oh,
So you, what, you're 41,
Look at a big chunk in there, huh?
1,500, yeah. Yeah, 83.
About 80 something, right?
Yeah, so you're taking a big chunk out of it. All right, so I have a first and a second. All those in favor? That's 8-0. Okay. Now, with the committee's indulgence, I know that the agenda that we have posted says meeting minutes are next, but there's old business and new business, and I actually have things to discuss, and since Barbara and Robin are here, and they could probably address some of those things, I'd like to move those up.
Sure.
All right. So, under old business, Larry and I talked about this.
Kevin, before you, I don't want to lose my train of thought on this, so you have $98,000 left in the reserve fund approximately after the transfers you just made.
Yeah.
There is going to be a special town meeting in January, so I guess I want you guys to decide whether, we should have some discussion as to whether or not maybe we want to
Replenish it.
replenish that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, given that we've taken a big chunk and we're not even 6 months through the fiscal year. So I'm probably going to recommend that to Robin.
I would recommend it
But I
too.
would want, we can discuss this more at a later date if you want, but I want your feedback as to where you would like that to be restored to.
All right, I'll think about that.
Okay,
People can
thank you.
send me ideas, but no, I agree with you. It would be nice to get at least proportional back, There's still 3/4 of the year left, and we've already spent 50% of our money. All right, so first thing under old business is just so everyone's aware of, I was thinking Larry and I have kind of tried to pursue this from different angles, is the open meeting law violation. As you know, we had come back that we did not violate the open meeting law, and that there was a period of time for an appeal to be raised. I waited till that appeal period ended, and I started asking questions was there an appeal, where are we with this? I haven't heard anything. And Robin, I don't know if you've gotten anything, information, or...
So we have, what Jonathan Eichman responded to me was that they have not heard back, our attorneys haven't heard back from the AG's office. So we wrote a response, sent a response up, and we have not heard anything back.
So I think at this point, it's just safe to assume that the issue is dead.
I don't know how far behind the AG's office is, but it doesn't sound like it was anything earth-shattering enough for us to rush a response back to us.
Robin, has the complainant raised the question?
It has not been brought back up to me.
All right, thank you.
So, anybody else with old business? Okay. New business, the one thing that was on here is discuss the form of motions, but I have 4 other things. I was going through my emails today that I sent out through the course of the summer that came up. So Mike, do you mind if I table the form of the motions to the last one?
Sure.
Okay. So, the first thing I wanted to mention is that everyone should have seen, we had the free cash certification, and that's in, so that's good. And it's roughly in line with last year's number, right? It's not that much higher. The other thing too is that there was a request, go ahead, Mike.
Free cash, so, yeah, we began at 7.8 million, we closed at roughly 7.8, even though things took place in there. But that doesn't account, that just gets us to the balance we had as of July 1, is that correct? And then we had a whole bunch of spending articles where we spent a whole bunch of free cash. So that comes off of the 7.8 million.
No, this is the certified number coming into this fiscal year, 7.795 million. That's what we have in free cash for fiscal year 2024.
But we also had, so I guess the fiscal year 2024 free cash spending articles that took place at the town meeting. Is that work off the 7.8 million, or is that prior to that, leaving us 7.8 on top of what we've already allocated to the town meeting?
So Barbara?
The articles from the special and the annual town meeting came off of last year's free cash number.
Right.
So as of right now, there's the 7.8 million.
Gotcha. So everything that we approved of those have already been taken off, and in addition to all that money that we appropriate, we have an additional 7.8 million left.
No, it's not additional, we're back to 7.8 million.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
The, so free cash closes out on June 30th. So whatever balance was remaining, so in the yellow book you're looking at, where that balance that was remaining after the annual and special town meeting, that money closed out, that money's gone. And now but it goes back into the formula of the recalculation of free cash. So if you don't spend it, it's going to be figured into what the next year's allocation is. So I believe we were in the fours, right?
5
4
million.
million, something, I don't know the exact number, but that plus, revenue that was taken in greater than what we estimated, expenditures, expense budgets that not 100% of the budget was spent, that factors into it. I'm going to put together a more detailed explanation for you all as to what contributed to that number.
And Barbara and I haven't even had a chance to really sit down and go through this and take a look at what the drivers were.
It seemed like last year we had quite a bit of a surplus, and I guess we consciously decided to, rather than, there's a lot of things you could do with it, including give it back to town people as a percent, and we decided to use it for capital expenditures. Are we heading down the same path this year with this? Is that what the thought process is?
We still have a multi-million-dollar capital expenditure project in the radio towers,
So-
like right there. And now you've just got $600,000 fuel system that'll probably come out of this too.
Yeah.
You know,
So I guess what I'm saying is we're heading on the same path as last year, and I'm gonna use this surplus percent-wise to fund projects.
We can either give people checks and hand back the money and then go back and raise and appropriate in their tax bill more money to pay for those articles, or we can pay for those things directly and not have
Not
to
have to
worry
go
about
back.
raising more money in taxes.
That's
Yep.
exactly right. We could give the money back, which
Yeah.
is a political statement, and this is not a political body. And that money that we would send back would make a U-turn and come right back, like Mike just said.
and it would actually be much more difficult because then it factors into what's our borrowing capacity and this, that, and the other thing. And we don't have to address that if we're just paying for it from
Exactly.
this surplus.
And worst
And
of,
particularly with interest rates where they're at, the last thing we want to do is be borrowing for something that's 600,000 or $1 million that we can actually pay. Because I really don't want to be paying the interest rates that are out there right now, not to mention our debt ratio and everything else that goes along with that. So
And-
there's, it's a policy that I think we've talked before that we all need to sit down too, probably, and look at policies on free cash.
Yeah.
but let's
It's
not
done.
forget that it took
Reopen.
It took years to get to, and it's now been years, that the town has been in the enviable position of AA+ stable. The minute that number goes down significantly, by giving it back, not by investing it in infrastructure, but just giving it out so that you can have a 3-week vacation instead of a 2-week vacation, what that will do is put a big question mark over the stability of the town. And then the U-turn on the money takes effect. Now, the word in the capital markets, which only goes by fear and greed, is, what's going on at Sturbridge? I think they're gonna have to pay me more interest. We wanna protect that. We're avoiding all of that, the bigger this number gets.
Right.
So you
we
can
gotta
drop
remember
the
that-
idea.
We,
It's a political thing anyway.
I think
We don't do that.
Yeah. So you kind of led into one of my next questions, is I was kind of curious, since, the senior center project is starting, we're gonna start to borrow money. What has been the effect of the rate increases and what we're seeing for borrowing costs? Any of,
So what I'm seeing right now is, you know, a 20-year, again, and Larry's absolutely right, the percentage rating you get, it doesn't just it's not just affected by the number of years that you are borrowing for, but it's also affected by your bond rating. So a 20-year is probably close to 4% right now.
Okay. And where were we looking, you know, 2 years ago? It was 2.25?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay. I mean, I was just curious, I'm kind of affected, because, you know, we are coming into the excluded borrowing, you know, for the senior center, and what are we looking at there for the borrowing costs now, at this point in time?
Well, you know, we're gonna have, Robin and I are gonna have to have a conversation about, given the current market environment, whether or not we, you know, do temporary borrowing right now with, you know, taking, you know, the chance that rates go down. But, you know, I'm gonna have to obviously talk to some of the banks, our financial advisor, and see where they see the market going. I know I was meeting with a bank yesterday, and they told me that they would be increasing their rates on my money, the town's money, you know, next week. So rates are continuing to go up on return on investment. So with that, the interest rate to borrow is also going to go up. So again, those are all things that we need to consider. I mean, I don't know how much higher they will go, and unfortunately, if I had a crystal ball, I don't know when they'll start going down either. But those are all discussions that we're going to have as this project is going to, you know, hit the ground running pretty quickly, and we're going to start incurring, you know, considerable costs that I am going to have to borrow for.
Right, and you have options, right? You can either borrow it all up front, or you can borrow it over time, right? Staggered borrowings.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to get a schedule for this project as how quickly they expect to be to spending money month by month. And then again, I would ultimately, right now, I would say that our best bet is to just do a temporary borrowing, probably for a year period of time, see where that goes, and then a year from now, you know, reassess what we're doing.
Okay.
Makes sense. When are you gonna start borrowing? What's the time frame for you getting your initial amount of money?
Sorry, I missed part of that.
When are you gonna start borrowing? When do we think we're gonna need the first portion to get the project going?
That's what I'm saying. I'm in the process of, I need to get a spending schedule from the building committee to know what they're gonna be looking at for expenses over, you know, each month in the coming year.
So Barbara, to be clear, so you're gonna get that schedule of values, and it's gonna say I need 500,000 in September, and I need 300 here, and 2 million in February. You don't go out and borrow, okay, I got a $2 million payment coming up, let me go out and write a 20-year borrowing for the $2 million. You do that on a short-term temporary borrowing to aggregate the whole thing, and when you get to the end of the project is when you look to finance the larger $14 million number, right?
Yeah, so I've borrowed in different aspects, so sometimes, like, it depends. So if rates were really low right now, you know, maybe I'd say, you know, let's do a bond issue for $10 million. Because we know we're gonna spend 10 million. And then when the project was getting to be complete, then I would say, okay, you know what, let's now borrow for the balance of that project. And so, but in the meantime, you borrow temporarily, which is called a bond anticipation note. And so that's what I would be looking to do at this point in time. I have to borrow anything we spent before the end of the fiscal year, because we don't want to close the year with a deficit in that account. So, like I said, once I get that schedule for them, I really don't know right now what the time limit is for this project and how quickly those expenses will be ramping up. So that it's hard for me to speak to it when I haven't seen those numbers yet.
Okay, I just was curious where we were going with that. And then another topic we had is there was a kind of a discussion of having a meeting between us, the finance director and town administrator, and I had sent the topics I had received and the questions to the both of you, and it's just a matter of you know, when you feel comfortable and ready to schedule the date and time where we would go through some of those topics. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that's in the works. All right. Let's see. Then everyone has the liaisons, right? There was a question, but it's all out. Everyone knows what they've got. And Robin sent it out and communicated it to everybody. Too, I assume, right? All the department heads know who their contacts are.
Yes, I did send that out
Okay.
when you sent it to me, yep.
Yep, beautiful. All right. So that hits off all the questions I had under new business. The only other one is that I know of is that one that we had posted, the discussion on the form of motions. And Mike, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll do it. So, working on the list to clean up some past minutes here. And in one or two sets of those, there came a question, especially when we're talking about the budget articles and stuff. You know, the form of motions as they're made as we go along there. And there's just a little wording difference on the way Larry may have said his motion versus mine versus Kathy's. I think the intent was always the same, and sometimes I think we get into a little, you know, yada, 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 you know what I mean, it'll come out right in a minute. So in order to provide a little clear direction to Alyssa, so she doesn't have to worry about where's the comma, where's the exact wording for Larry versus Mike, you know, here's what that motion is typically recorded as. I provided those to her to use as some guidance in there, and I figured I'd also, you know, share it with the committee and make sure we're all on the same page here. I don't necessarily, I'm not looking for a vote or any formal action, I just want to make sure that we kind of are all on the same page, and, you know, certainly makes life easier across the board if, when the motions are made, they're made in a consistent and clear form there, but if you change a word or two here, as long as we're all in agreement that the way they get reflected in the minutes are consistent with what was prior.
So regardless of how it's
Very
voted,
admirable. Thank you for the initiative.
so regardless of how it's stated, she's gonna modify it to fit the format that we all agree on, we should have it in, and that's how it'll be presented.
Good on it.
Which is great, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. You ought to be,
And now I'll take a couple hours off of her time trying to watch these things and go through.
Yeah.
I'm gonna nominate you next year.
He does a great job, I have to say. All right, so good. We're good with the form of motions. If we,
Barbara, before you leave, are you around tomorrow and maybe have a few spare minutes, or you're busy? I still have some questions on free cash. We can just come in and do it outside.
Yeah, I am, if you want to stop in at 10 o'clock,
Okay,
does that work?
yes.
Okay,
all right, so the next thing then would be the meeting minutes. And the first one of those, if I can go back, is April 14th, 2022. What did you do with those, Kevin? There we go. Did anyone have any questions or comments?
Chip told you my car. You did? Oh, no.
I didn't have anything that really stuck out.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay.
You gotta tell your wife to stop coming to our meetings.
They got done early tonight.
What?
It's conservation. They
Oh, really?
usually here till midnight.
So Jim and Riley should go.
All right, so let's just go look at these here. So who do we have? So
The other person absent is Bruce, so everyone's good except for Sean.
who can vote on? Lee, myself, Larry, Kathy, Lee.
Everyone who's here except for Sean.
And change, okay.
Sean would have to abstain, though, because you weren't part of the committee at that point in time.
Yep.
All right, so we've got a first and second to approve them as written. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstaining, so 7 to 0 to 1. Ready? There we go. All right, so the next one is April 18th of 2023.
2022.
No, we just did 2022, that was April 14th.
You're right.
So April 18th of 2023.
This one, we're all the way back to 22.
Yeah.
We still have one or two from 22 that we're cleaning up.
So April.
This is the budget meeting, right?
Yeah.
Of course you did.
This is one, this would have been one of the budget, but this was the budget presentation.
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Okay. So I got a motion as written. Do I have a second? Larry? And is this everybody here too?
That means I read it twice.
So Kathy and Sean are not eligible for this one. Hi.
We're taking off for conservation. Do you want me to lock you guys in?
Sure.
Lock the doors? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you just prevented public, we're attending an open.
Oh, that's true. Wait, you gotta let her know
Leave the
that.
door unlocked, we'll
Good,
take care of it.
thank you for catching that.
Well, you can still get out, but nobody else.
No, we can lock it though, but we are having an open public meeting, so.
Oh, true.
If someone wants to come in,
Okay.
great, thank you.
Typical conservation thinking.
Ha! All right.
Just a lighthouse.
Thank you for that, Mike.
Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, okay. So this is gonna be 6.
5-0-2. So all those in favor?
Did I vote?
Oh, no, you're right, 6, you're right.
You were
Sorry,
on the
6,
second.
Yeah. So we got 6 against, abstaining, and there's our 2. Sorry. Math, I'm melting here, so math isn't working. All right, so the next one is May 11th.
Got it.
Ah, okay.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Wow. Jim's done a lot of homework. So Jim has made the motion to approve it as written.
Jim has a boring one.
I'll second that.
Lee seconds. Any other questions or comments?
So on this one, it's me and Sean.
Let me go back to the top, I forgot to look.
I was hoping there were no edits, so I didn't open them up.
No, yeah, it's just you and Sean will have to, yep. All right,
This is July 13th?
no,
No,
this is May
Oh,
11th.
May 11th, if I put them on the bottom.
Yeah, okay. All right, any other questions or comments related to May 11th? All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Oh, okay. And then abstaining, so now you made it 5 to 0 to 3. Okay. And then the last one's a July 13th.
That was
This had to be our reorg, right? Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay. Jim, do I have a second? Ken? Now, this one. Sean is official at this one.
There's one.
They're in the mix.
And we're all here, so we all can account for it. So I have a first and a second to approve the minutes as written. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 8 to 0.
That was Kathy for a second.
No, second on that one was
Wasn't me, no.
Ken.
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 Close,
I had KT here for a while, I
There's
couldn't figure
there's
it
too
out.
many initials that end in M and too many that start with Ks and.
All right, so that gets us through all the meeting minutes, old business, new business. Anything else anyone wants to bring up? Because next is public access, and I know they're lined up out the door. Okay, and then Lee.
I'll move to adjourn.
All right, who wants the second? Kathy. All right.
Thank you all very much for everything.
Thank you. This is at
Thank
you.
7:55. Lee made the motion and Kathy seconded.
7:50.
All those in favor? Great, thank you all.
Good night, everyone.
Show this.